Sister Margaret had spent 40 years inside those Brooklyn church walls until the morning a 20-year-old priest arrived and changed everything. What she discovered about Father Daniel in that small cafe next to the church, nobody in that parish was ready for it. If stories like this move you, hit subscribe. A new one drops every week. You know, sometimes I come across stories that just stay with me for days. I heard this one from a close friend who volunteers at a church in Brooklyn, New York, and I have to tell you, I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Sister Margaret had given her entire life to the Church of St. Anne on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. 60 years old, steady as a rock, the kind of woman who remembered every single parishioner's name, their birthday, their struggles. She had entered the convent at 19, and from that day forward, her life had been made up of early morning prayers, afternoon community work, and the quiet rhythm of a life devoted to something bigger than herself. The people of that Brooklyn neighborhood loved her. She was the one who organized the food drives every Thanksgiving, who sat beside the elderly when they were sick, who never once complained about the cold drafts that swept through that old stone building every winter. She was not unhappy. That is the important thing to understand. Sister Margaret was not a woman who went to bed at night wishing for a different life. She had chosen her path with open eyes, and she was at peace with it. But peace, as anyone who has lived long enough will tell you, is not the same thing as fullness. There were quiet moments, usually late on Sunday afternoons when the last parishioner had gone home and the church fell completely silent. When she would sit alone in the third pew from the front and feel the weight of all those years pressing gently on her shoulders. Not regret, just the particular kind of loneliness that comes from a life lived entirely in service to others. That all changed on a Thursday morning in early October. My friend told me that Sister Margaret had arrived at the church earlier than usual that day, just past 6 in the morning, because there was a shipment of donated winter coats coming in, and she wanted to be there to organize everything before the community center opened. The air in Brooklyn that morning had that sharp, clean smell that only comes in autumn, the kind that makes the whole borough feel like it just took a deep breath. The maple trees along Atlantic Avenue had gone full orange and red, and the sidewalks were covered in leaves that crunched under her shoes as she walked from her residence. When she pushed open the heavy wooden side door of St. Anne and stepped into the hallway, she heard someone playing the church organ. That stopped her completely. Nobody was supposed to be there at that hour. The music was hesitant at first, a little unsteady, like someone working something out note by note. But there was something in it, a kind of searching quality, like a question being asked very slowly and very carefully. Sister Margaret followed the sound through the corridor and into the main hall of the church, and there he was. A young man she had never seen before, sitting at the organ, still wearing his black clerical collar and his coat, as if he had just walked in and sat down without even taking off his jacket. He looked no older than 20. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, his posture concentrated, completely absorbed in what he was doing. He did not hear her come in. She stood there for a long moment without saying a word. She did not want to interrupt him. When the music stopped and he finally turned around and saw her standing in the aisle, he jumped to his feet so fast he nearly knocked the organ bench over. His face went completely red. He introduced himself as Father Daniel Reeves, newly assigned to St. Anne as part of a diocesan rotation program. He had arrived in Brooklyn the night before from a small town in rural Ohio, and he had not been able to sleep, so he had come to the church before dawn because he did not know what else to do with himself. Sister Margaret told him to sit back down and keep playing if he wanted to. He did. She sat in that third pew, her pew, and listened. My friend said that something shifted in Sister Margaret that morning, though she could not have named it right away. It was not anything dramatic. It was more like a window opening in a room that had been closed for a very long time. Father Daniel played for another 20 minutes, and when he finished, the two of them walked next door to a small cafe called the Morning Bell on Atlantic Avenue, 2 blocks from the church. It was the kind of place with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu and the smell of coffee so strong it hit you before you even opened the door. They ordered 2 coffees and sat at a corner table by the window, and they talked until the breakfast rush started filling up the place around 8 in the morning. He told her about Ohio, about growing up in a small Catholic family, the youngest of 5 children, the only one who had felt the pull toward the church, about how certain he had been, and how uncertain he had become in the past year as he moved through his training. She listened to all of it without interruption, the way she had learned to listen to people over 40 years of ministry. But this was different. This was not the careful listening of a counselor. This was the listening of someone who was genuinely, unexpectedly interested. He asked her questions too, real ones. Not polite small talk, but actual questions, the kind that required thought. What had kept her going all these years? What did she do when doubt showed up? Had she ever been afraid? Nobody had asked Sister Margaret those questions in a very long time. Over the following weeks, the two of them fell into a quiet and steady friendship. They shared coffee at the Morning Bell on Tuesday and Thursday mornings before the 6:30 service. They walked through Prospect Park on Sunday afternoons when their duties allowed, kicking through the thick carpet of fallen leaves along the paths near the boathouse. He told her about the books he was reading. She told him about the neighborhood, about the families she had watched grow up over 4 decades, about the way Brooklyn had changed and also stayed exactly the same in all the ways that mattered. My friend said that what Sister Margaret discovered about Father Daniel, the secret she eventually uncovered, was not something scandalous. It was something far more surprising than that. One afternoon in November, as they were walking along the park path near the Prospect Park boathouse, Father Daniel stopped walking and told her that he had been seriously considering leaving the priesthood. He had never said it out loud before, not to anyone. He was terrified of the words even as he was saying them. The doubt had been building for months, and he did not know what to do with it or who to tell. He had come to Brooklyn half hoping that a new environment would settle something inside him. It had not. If anything, it had made everything louder. Sister Margaret did not say anything for a long time. They kept walking. The lake was dark and still, and there were a few joggers passing them on the path, but otherwise the park was quiet. Then she said something that my friend has never forgotten, because Sister Margaret told her about it later, word for word. She said, "Daniel, the fact that you are still asking the question means the answer is not finished yet. Stay with the question. That is the bravest thing you can do." He stopped walking again and looked at her, and my friend told me, her voice got very quiet when she said this part, that Father Daniel looked at Sister Margaret in that moment the way people look at someone who has just handed them something they did not know they had lost. They stood there by the Boathouse Lake in Prospect Park on a cold November afternoon in Brooklyn, and something passed between them that had no name and did not need one. Not romantic in any conventional sense. Something older and quieter and more lasting than that, a recognition. Two people who had both spent their lives asking the hardest questions and who had, somehow, found each other in the middle of all that searching. Father Daniel stayed at St. Anne. He did not leave the priesthood. But the man who stayed was different from the one who had walked through that side door in October. He carried himself differently. He laughed more easily. He started his own early morning music sessions at the organ, and sometimes Sister Margaret came and sat in the third pew and listened, and sometimes she did not, and either way was fine. My friend said the two of them became the heart of that parish in a way that was hard to describe, not because of anything they announced or organized or said from the pulpit, just because of the way they moved through that old Brooklyn church with a kind of ease and warmth that people feel without being able to explain why. I think about Sister Margaret and Father Daniel a lot, not because their story is extraordinary in the way that headlines are extraordinary, but because it is extraordinary in the way that real life is extraordinary. Quietly, slowly, in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday morning with 2 cups of coffee and an honest conversation. She spent 40 years giving everything she had to everyone around her. And then, one October morning, a 20-year-old kid from Ohio sat down at an organ before sunrise and, without meaning to, gave something back to her. He gave her someone to talk to. Someone who asked real questions and waited for real answers. Someone who reminded her that the life she had chosen was still alive inside her. That is what love looks like sometimes. Not grand gestures, not perfect timing, just 2 people showing up in the same place and deciding, without quite realizing it, that the other person matters. If you know someone like Sister Margaret, someone who has spent so long taking care of everyone else that they have forgotten what it feels like to be truly seen, share this story with them. They deserve to hear it. And if stories like this one move you the way they move me, stories about real human connection, about love that shows up in unexpected places, about people who find each other right when they need to, then I would love for you to be part of this community. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. A new one comes every single week. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here.